Hey everyone, Andrew here, and I did not want to do this. I really, I did not want to do this. I've been festering on this for, 4 years now, because when this show ended, I had a very negative response to it, and I've been trying since to let it go. I even went onto Letterboxd and wrote a whole review explaining all of my thoughts and all my deep-seated frustration with the show. And I'm like, okay, good. It's out there. I released it. It's gone. I don't have to think about it or deal with it anymore. But it just kept festering. And I wasn't going to do this. I was definitely... this had been in the back burner as a possibility for 3 years now. I've been talking myself out of it for years, especially after the results from the last one of these editorial things that I did, where I talked about the Orville and my thoughts on how its original marketing didn't really match the show that we ended up with, especially towards its later seasons. And that one got really negative responses, which fine, whatever. But with this one, it's I know I'm gonna get negative responses to it, and I just really can't let it go. And so yeah, today I will be talking about the Steven Universe Future Show and how it was an ambitious idea that didn't work. And yeah, no, I really tried to talk myself out of this, because it is ambitious. It did try something different and creative and really take a deep dive look into these characters and the situation, and I did not like it. I did not. So yeah, if you haven't watched Steven Universe, at least the original show, you may want to watch that before you watch this, because the future, I'm going to go into some spoilers. I'll do my best not to spoil any of the huge, big, important things. I'm mostly just going to be talking about the specific ending. And that is going to be spoiled, but it's not necessarily if you know how the series ends, it's going to ruin the entire show for you. Although I will say the ending ruined some of the show for me. But yeah, so let's go a little bit over the plot. So, Steven Universe is a show created by Rebecca Sugar for the Cartoon Network. It ran on the Cartoon Network setup, which means most episodes are 10 to 12 minutes long, and you get an episode every once in a while. So it's a real quick burn through if you're watching it on demand or something, because you can just burn through the entire thing in a couple days. But if you're watching it from episode to episode, that is definitely a lot rougher. But yeah, so Steven Universe follows Steven Universe, who is a young boy who is a half-human, half-gem hybrid. A gems are an alien race that are created from the actual gems that they're named after. So the gems, they're aliens from another planet. They are all basically female or non-binary, one of the two, depending on how you look at them. And they are all literally gems that are able to mold themselves into a humanistic form. And they came to Earth thousands of years ago to create colonies and basically sap up all of the Earth's resources and use it for their own nefarious means. Steven's mother, named Rose Quartz, did not like the way that the human beings were being treated and how they were destroying this lush planet, so she and a bunch of the other gems staged a revolt and fought against the gems and the Gem Wars.
They were doing something awful to the planet, and your mother couldn't stand it anymore. She gave up everything just to stop what they started here and drive the invading gems off of Earth.
And the wars ended with the leaders of the alien gems basically bombarding the planet, killing most of the crystal gems, and they thought they'd left the entire planet undead. Rose Quartz managed to save a bunch of the humans and herself, as well as her three main lieutenants.
Garnet, amethyst, and pearl.
Thousands of years later, into the modern day, she met a human named Greg Universe, and she fell in love with him, and they decided that they wanted to have a child, and somehow she created Steven.
Get ready, baby. You're gonna have the coolest dad this side of the cosmos.
You're going to be a human being.
Hey, Rose!
Take care of them, Stephen.
There's literally no explanation ever given to how this exactly happened, but he now has his mother's gem resting inside of his belly, and his mother is gone. Like, completely. Once she fused into Steven, she disappeared, and no longer exists. And then, so Steven was being raised by the crystal gems, were amethyst, garnet, and pearl, who was teaching him how to be a warrior and how to use his powers. And
with hard work and dedication, you can master the magical properties of your gem and perform your own dance.
help protect the earth from crazy broken gems that were going on rampages, but also the ever looming threat of the alien gems figuring out there's still life on this planet and coming back.
All gems aren't necessarily good.
And I actually really enjoy the original Steven Universe series. It's got really good comedy, really good characters. Like, it has great aspects to it. The only real negative I would say I have with it is that it had to follow the Cartoon Network formula of being 10 to 12 minute episodes, because a lot of episodes feel like they needed more diving into. Like, a lot of them felt a little bit more surface level. It's like, well, we gotta wrap this story up. You also end up with a bunch of, like, just filler kind of episodes that don't really have much to do with anything. However, when the show gets into arcs, when they were allowed to do longer episodes, when they were allowed to do, actual events, the show becomes amazing. Like, the storytelling is great, the characters are amazing. It has this really good epicness and quality to it. Basically, it ends it with him going to the gem homeworld and fighting the diamonds, who are the rulers of the gem world, and Steven Universe manages to overcome them, and not only that, he befriends them, and they end up working together. This leads into the Steven Universe movie, which this takes place a couple years after the events of Steven Universe, so Steven is a little bit older now. He's around, I want to say 17, is legitimately amazing. I absolutely love it. It's got great acting, it's a musical, it's got great music. It's one of the best TV into a film things I've ever seen, and it's just amazingly well done. One of my favorite musicals, one of my favorite things. Like, it's nearly perfect, if not perfect, as far as I can. And then we get to Future, which is just a little mini-series, like 20 episodes of the same 10-minute length, so it's really like 10 episodes. And it's supposed to be a epilogue. It's presented as it's going to be a victory lap to show you what's going on with those characters, and it just gives you the last chance to really see these characters and say goodbye before the series ends forever. And had they done that, I may not have been as mad about this, but they decided that they were going to delve into something very deep and very emotional and very psychological. Basically, it starts even on the first episode. First episode, Steven is talking to one of the gems, and that gem brings up Steven's mom, Rose Quartz. And Steven immediately has a reaction to it. His skin starts glowing vibrant pink.
White hurt you before she controlled you?
What? Oh, stars. What a misunderstanding.
Mom? Sorry, it's just baggage.
And I immediately saw that and I went, oh no, he has PTSD. And I am correct. So, and you can tell right off the bat that this is not just bad PTSD, this is extremely bad PTSD. Because it's not a specific event or a specific smell, it's literally just someone saying his mother's name. and he has an episode, and I freak out as a result. And you only get like little nuggets of this in the first few episodes. You know something's off, something is a little iffy with Steven. He's having a lot more emotional problems. He's having a lot harder time figuring out what he's supposed to be doing and where he wants to be, and is prone to more fits of anger. And it's really hard to watch because he went from this incredibly lovable, likable, fun-loving, great kid, and then you are watching him have this emotional devastation that no one is really noticing. And they kind of brush it off, and they don't deal with it extremely for a few episodes. But when you get towards the end of the Future series, he goes and visits his girlfriend's mom, who is a doctor, and she starts asking him about his childhood and the things that he experienced and this and the other, and it's like she realizes and figures out that he has high levels of trauma.
Stephen, do you remember anything bad in your childhood that particularly stuck with you?
I guess I kind of freaked out when they canceled my favorite ice cream. And then I got attacked by a giant bug monster. And I got trapped in a bubble and almost drowned. I lost control of my body and turned into a blob of cats. I almost turned so old I died. Amethyst almost died. Pearl did die. Garnet got destabilized right in front of me. I woke up with a black eye, imprisoned on a spaceship.
Stephen, this is serious.
But that was just the early stuff.
That because he spent so much of his life in battle, being attacked, being under constant threat, having to literally fight with the world on his shoulders type of thing, that he's had extremely high trauma, and he has never had any chance to deal with it, or to let it out, or to express it, or to understand it. He's just been pushing it down further and further with no method of releasing it.
I think all these experiences have been subjecting your body to a harmful amount of stress, and that's affecting your ability to respond to new forms of stress in a healthy way. You've been dealing with genuine threats from such a young age. Your body is now responding to minor threats as if your life were in danger.
And, instead of sending him to therapy immediately, he just goes home and starts to freak out. So he leaves and he goes and stays in the woods with this character called Jasper, who used to be a villain but managed to be somewhat of a good character by the end. And they are basically... and he's staying with her because she's the only one who will talk to him and tell him everything straight out without any emotional connection behind it. And they start fighting together and training together, and Steven ends up nearly killing her, but manages to revive her. Then he runs home and leaves and goes to the Gems homeworld and tries to get the Diamonds, who are the leaders of the Gems, to help him out, and that backfires as well, and he ends up going back to Earth and trying to pretend that nothing happened, until eventually he just grows into this giant, full-on rage monster.
You'd think of me as some angel, but I'm not that kid anymore. I'm a fraud. I'm a fraud. I'm a monster.
And starts attacking everybody, and it takes literally every single one of his friends grabbing him and holding him down and hugging him and telling him that everything is going to be okay and that he's going to be okay, for him to revert back into his normal human body.
I want to be there for you now. I'm here, Stephen. I'm here.
And immediately after that, he's like, I can't stay here. I need to go. So his dad gives him his car, and he decides that he's going to go and travel and figure out how to deal with this. And everyone says emotional goodbyes except for the crystal gems. They are very stoic and very cold. And he gets in the car and leaves and starts to pull away, and then
Well, I guess this is goodbye.
We'll be thinking of you.
All right then. What's wrong with you guys? Aren't you sad I'm leaving?
Oh man, I can't take this anymore.
We were trying to be strong for you. Pearl agrees.
You guys!
I peeked. Like I saw a possibility that our tears would keep you from leaving.
We didn't want to hold you back.
emotional release, and then he gets back in the car and drives away, and that's where the series ends. And I hate that ending. On the one hand, this is a deep dive into the emotional traumas of dealing with an extremely traumatizing childhood that involved people constantly trying to kill you and attacking your house and attacking your friends and attacking your family and not dealing with these situations. On the other hand, that is the overall goal of Future, but that is really not the focus until very close to the end. It just like breadcrumbs you a little bit at the beginning and a little bit in a couple episodes, and then just kind of shoves all of it into like the last 6 episodes or so. And to deal with that and to talk about that and all that stuff is not a bad thing. I just don't think this was the best execution. And it's also that thing of like, this is where she chooses to end the series for now. And it's such a depressing note to kind of end on, because Steven is not okay. Steven is still a broken person at this point. Like, one hugging section with everyone telling you that you're important and that you're cared about is not going to fix all of this. And him getting in the car and leaving, is that just him running away again? It sort of feels like him running away again. Also, he's leaving alone. And it's like he was already having trouble dealing with this when he was surrounded by friends and family and people that loved him and people that cared about him. So now going off on his own with none of that support doesn't feel like progress. It feels like the opposite. And it's just drags the entire thing down a bit. And I'm like, I didn't hate all of Future. There was some good stuff in Future. Specifically, I really liked the fact that they gave Jasper a redemption arc. Like, Jasper was a really big villain for seasons 2 and 3, and they gave a really good, like, respect to that character and let them grow and let them change in a way that felt right for that character and was very well executed. But that's about the only thing in Future I really liked. Like, the first few episodes feel like they're not about much of anything. Like, and then there was just like the stuff that, you know, you kind of would want from this that you just didn't get. Like, one of the things the show was known for was its fusions. Like, a gym can dance with another gym, and if they have the right emotional connection and stuff, they can fuse together to become a bigger, stronger being.
Synchronize.
And once you do that in any kind of show that has that kind of mechanic, you immediately want to know what every single variation of the fusion is going to look like. You then add in the fact that Steven is a human who can fuse with other humans, and it just leads to some amazing possibilities. Like, legitimately, every fusion we got to see was amazing. I love every single fusion that we really got to see in the entire series. The But then you're left with the ones that never happened, and most of them I can understand and be like, okay, well, I get it. The one that really disappoints me that we never got to saw was of Lapis Lazuli and Peridot. Lapis Lazuli and Peridot were two characters that started out as kind of villains, and through Steven's friendship and helping them and understand that became some of his most powerful allies. They basically Lapis and Peridot ended up being roommates and were living together and were almost a couple, kind of, sort of. And they got such a deep emotional connection to each other. The fact that we never got to see them fuse together and see the powerful being that they could become feels like a missed opportunity. Like, of all of the possible fusions we could have, the fact that that never happened is regretful, I feel. And then there's something I really wish they'd gone to do, which they did not do, which was a redemption arc for Steven's mom, Rose Quartz. Now, at the end of Steven Universe, towards the end, you find out something about Rose Quartz that recontextualizes literally everything she's done for the entire series. And it adds a very dark cloud over every single action she'd ever performed. Because she did some very dark, bad things, and we never really get any type of explanation or reason or justification, or even really get to see her thoughts or her feelings about the situation, because she's dead. And it's all Steven learning this through other people and other things. And in future, they doubled down on that, and they literally do everything to make Rose Quartz come off as the worst. And that just, like, to the point where it's like Steven can't even hear his mom's name without freaking out. There was this lovely portrait of her in the house, and Steven could not stand it being in the house, so he threw it in with all of her stuff in the special hiding place his mom had. And it's like, like, to take a character that, while we didn't get much of her in Steven Universe, because, again, she's dead, the little we got was amazing. Like, she was a great character. Like, when you saw her, like, the first few times, those were, like, some of the best episodes in the entire show. It's just amazing to meet this character and see her and see... You understood who she was and everything about her right away. And then you find out this big, important information, and just, like, it's hard to have feelings about that character, because I still like that character. I still love the way that character was drawn and thought and represented. But knowing what she did, and the fact that we get no real good explanation or justification or thoughts on it, is frustrating. And, like, they tried. They gave us a little bit. Like, we know that she had an emotionally damaging childhood because she was raised in a very strict household where it's like, you either do what you're told or you're locked in solitary confinement. And no matter what she did, she would always end up in solitary confinement. And, of course, that would be traumatic and screw her up. But then they tried to add in future that she had rage issues, caused all this trauma, that because of her, an entire section of gems got locked away and were not allowed to be alive because of what she did, because they were the same type as her. And that you end up meeting another Pearl, who turns out was originally Rose Quartz's first Pearl. And she has a very distinct design, and that one of her eyes is damaged, and white and can't see through it. And she tells us flat out that, oh no, Rose Quartz did this. She got angry one of the times and used her ability on me, and it cannot be healed anymore. And it's just, like, throwing an extra, like, level of just, like, oh god, this is the worst character onto a character that was universally beloved at the start, and now they're just trying so hard to make her dislikable. Like, I nearly did a top 10 of, like, terrible things that Rose Quartz has done list at a point, because, like, once you get all of this new stuff, it's like, there's so much that she did that is just really hard to be understanding and forgiving, and I want to. I really like that character. I'm really frustrated that she doesn't even get a chance to kind of get any kind of defense for herself. But those are like real little nitpicks. Like, not seeing the fusion and not getting a redemption arc for Rose are nitpicks. I could forgive most of the series. The two real problems I have with it is that, first off, the show is clearly wants to be about the dealing with the psychological damage of that, but it really doesn't become the focus until further in, and you get a lot of episodes that are hinting at it, but they feel more like filler. Like, there's an entire episode that's just Steven's show that he liked as a kid is getting rebooted, and he doesn't like the version that's coming out. So he uses his power to try to force the show back to the way he wanted it to be. And it's like, they also made some really odd and annoying choices where it's like, one of the things that drove me nuts in this is, like, they had a human couple who were sort of dating at the beginning of Steven Universe, and then they got separated. And this is Lars and Sadie. And literally, like, for most of the 4th and 5th season, they were on completely at different ends of the galaxy. And they finally got to be together at the very, very, very end of Steven Universe. And literally the next time we really see them in Steven Universe Future, they're already broken up and going off on their own ways. And it's like, and I get what they were going for, because the entire episode was about, you know, things don't stay the same, things change, you have to learn and accept and grow with it. But for the fans, this couple had been together for a couple hours. As far, like, we got a couple hours of them as a couple, and then the rest of the time they were apart. And it's just kind of sad to see them ripped apart before we really even got to see them in a healthy relationship together. You know, now that they've both grown and were better people. But, again, that's a nitpick. But it's like the fact that, you know, the entire first, like, 15 episodes is kind of all fillery, doesn't really dive as deep as they could have. Doesn't work. But then to have it be about the emotional stuff, and it be about psychological and dealing with this trauma, and then to choose to end on the note it did. Because it's not a great note to end on. But it's also just so incredibly depressing. Because not only is a character who was fun, lovable, with a big heart, and cared about everybody, now a broken mess, but despite the fact that he's surrounded by people who loved him and cared about him and wanted him to be good and okay, he still broke that hard, and nobody noticed until it was too late. Is just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It really upsets me as a fan, as a person who has had emotional problems in my life. You know, I did not have a traumatic childhood like Steven. I was not attacked. I was not any of these things. But I definitely have been in situations where I'm like breaking down and I need someone to notice. And I thankfully always had someone for that. And to think about this lovely, amazing kid having all of these people and no one was there for him when he really needed it until it was too late. It's just... it's a lot. It's a lot. Especially when you compare it to how the film ended, where the film is almost like this perfect ending for the entire show. It's like Steven has grown, Steven has figured out and fully accepted every part of himself, and knows the thing that makes him great is the fact that he always tries, that he can change, that he can grow and be a better person. And it ends on a big, flashy musical number, which really feels like the way the show should end.
Believe.
We've come so far.
So far. And it's bright, 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 and it's bright.
For as long as I can say, happily ever after never ends.
And then what was supposed to be the epilogue victory lap turns into a psychological study of a child going through traumatic events and not dealing with them properly. Like, certain shows like doing this and delving into this would really work and be a really good character study. But I don't know if it necessarily matches the tone of Steven Universe. Like, it does work. I'm not going to say it's bad. It's not even that it's terrible. It's just that the entire... Because I kept trying to talk myself out of doing this because they were ambitious and they made good, hard choices and they chose to do something daring. But when it comes down to it, I have to look at what the product is when it's finished and how it affects my feelings towards the entire series. And unfortunately, the majority of Steven Universe Future hampers my enjoyment of the rest of the series. Like, I love the other parts. Steven Universe, the show, the original, I found the first series to be a 4.5 out of 5. Like, it has a little bit of episodes that aren't great, but for the most part, it's exceptional. And when it gets into those arc moments, it's just great. And then the movie is one of my favorite things. I give it an easy 5 out of 5. Honestly, it could be a 5.5 out of 5 as far as I'm concerned. It's just so good. But Future, I have to give like a 2. Because it just felt unfocused. It didn't really build as well as it should have. It was an extremely emotionally wrecking season. And it just ended on this kind of note that just... Honestly, there were days where I really wish I could take a mental floss and just erase it from my brain. And just end on the movie. Like... I don't know. And I don't want to chastise the show. And it's like, here's the thing. If Rebecca Sugar decided, oh yeah, I'm going to do another season of Steven Universe, and I'm going to continue on, and we're going to dive into that stuff, I would be on board. I would watch it in the hopes that it would help fix this negative ending for me. But from the sounds of it, she has no intention of doing that anytime soon. Like, so we're just kind of stuck with this boy traveling alone, dealing with emotional stuff that he has already proven he can't necessarily handle on his own. And that is heartbreaking. But that is just my opinion. What do you all think? Did you dislike the ending of the show? Did you like the ending of the show? Do you think I'm completely wrong and this was a great dive into the emotional damage of being raised in this kind of environment? Let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what you think about Steven Universe and all of that. And if you'd like me to do anything else like this, talk about any other show kind of like this, let me know in the comments below. Happy watching, happy reading. I will see you all next time. Bye.
Steven, I know you are here. Come on out. You know I can sense you.
Steven Bomb! Whoa! I got you.
You got me.
And now you're blind.
Tiny hands, my only weakness.
Whoa!
Stop it! I can't deal with one more horrible thing she did, okay? I don't want to hear about it. I don't even want to think about it.
Steven!
I just want to fix it!